Good evening. Talk about targets. Are they good? Are they bad? Friend or foe? My friend here will be trying to distract you with some things that will tie into my talk here. Neil's going to be drawing along, which you can see on the screen behind me. And most organizations use targets to drive behavior. Seems like a good idea? Well, we need to think about that. I'm going to share with you 3 examples which will show you how targets might drive the wrong behavior. So, I'd like you to take the perspective of somebody who's been set a target. In fact, let's play a game. Okay? So I'll suggest some targets, and then you think about what you might do to achieve those targets. Okay? And just to make it interesting, imagine that you get rewarded for reaching those targets. Obviously tonight no cash or change hands, it's a free event, you understand that. But I'll give you a point for each one of the examples that you think, yeah, I would have got that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead with this. And the first example is a call center. Okay, so a customer calls their bank or their TV service or the insurance company, and you're the person that answers the call. So you have a headset on, little computer screen. You work in an area with 100 or so people all answering calls, and your target is to answer 100 calls a day. Okay? So obviously, you've got to get the customer off the line as quickly as possible because you've got to answer the next calls. So how do you think you're going to do that? Okay? Remember, there's a point at stake. You could transfer the call to another department. You could offer to call the customer back. You could ask the customer to email in. You could send them to the website. There's lots of tactics for getting on to the next call. The problem is you're focused on the target, not solving the problem of the customer. Now, the organisation that's in the press a lot recently that's very target-driven is the NHS. Here's a second example. And you are now responsible for meeting the 18-week target for the NHS. Okay, you up for that? So how are you going to do that? Okay. Well, you might think, well, we'll improve the initial assessment of people, we'll look at the scheduling, we'll improve the operations or whatever diagnostic we need to do on them, we'll just make the system better. And the NHS is a very complex system. It takes a long time to make any changes, but you've still got a target to meet, and it's a target with national visibility. So what are you going to do? Reclassify. Okay, it's been reading the newspapers. Absolutely. Or you might delay when people go onto the list. Delay when the clock starts ticking. You might take more difficult treatments off the list because you don't think they really belong there. Or you might classify people as socially unavailable. Okay? So if you thought of any of those, then congratulations, you get another point. Now, my third example, and I love this one, is about buses. This is your last chance to gain a point tonight, by the way. So we all know that no buses come for a long time, and then 2 or 3 come all at once. Well, in Chile, this was a real problem, and the authorities thought they would solve it by setting a target for the number of passengers each bus driver had to get on their bus. Okay? What they thought was that would encourage the drivers to space themselves out so the buses would drive at regular frequencies. Okay? What do you think? You're now the bus driver driving in the narrow, dusty streets in Santiago. What are you going to do to meet that target? You could wait until the next bus is coming. Actually, what happened in Chile was the bus drivers speeded up and tried to overtake each other so they would get to the bus stop first. And the result? Accidents went up by 67%. Incredible. A fantastic example of hitting the target but missing the point. So if you got all 3 points, congratulations, that's really good thinking. It's devious thinking, but it's good thinking. You get the idea of where targets can actually drive you. Now, targets are normally set with the best of intentions. But what you get, at best, is not what you intended. Employees learn that a lie a day helps their pay. So should we set targets for the number of arrests that the police make, or the levels of immigration, or the number of people on unemployment benefit? What about school league tables? Do they drive up educational standards, or do they force schools to game the system and exclude the less able pupils, or get people just to sit the exams which are easier so they hit their targets? Targets give an illusion of control. But in reality, all financial, moral and ethical considerations go out the window because people become just focused on hitting that number. There's only three things you can do if you get a target. One, you could improve the system. Two, you can change the calculation, make you look better. Or three, just make the numbers up. The problem is that improvement very rarely happens because people are gaming the system and just focusing on the target. So what can we do to drive improvement without setting targets? The answer is very simple. Instead of setting arbitrary targets, set people a problem to solve. And you'd be amazed at the results. It'd be much, much better than any target could have driven. Because you're valuing people, you're valuing their input, their experience. So you might, as an example, give a group of employees the problem, currently, waiting times are too long. And the solution they come up with may well be different in Orkney compared to Edinburgh. Or currently, too many calls are transferred at this call centre. Or, currently, all the buses seem to arrive at once. When you set targets for people, you disengage them, you disenfranchise them, you disenchant them. You can tell people who work in target-driven organisations like NHS and local government, they walk like this, because they've got the weight of the targets weighing them down. But ask people to problem solve instead, and they're energised, they're enthused, they're excited to be involved. Teaching people simple problem solving is the most transformational thing you can do in any organisation. So we have a choice. Do you want people in organisations to hate us and our targets? Or do you want them focused on solving problems for the customer, for the patient, for the pupil? For the sake of us all, to ditch the targets and give people problems to solve instead. Thank you.